Tread Boldly, Leadership Lessons from the Saints with Father Nathan Cromly.
Hello, this is Father Cromly. I'm the president of the St. John Institute, and this is Tread Boldly, Leadership Lessons from the Saints. Anyone who's read the Gospel is familiar with the amazing story of Simon Peter walking on water. We read about it in Matthew chapter 14, just after Jesus feeds 5,000 men, not counting women and children, miraculously by multiplying the few loaves given to him by the apostles. In the presence of the overwhelming acclaim that would have come to him from the crowd, Jesus dismisses the 12 apostles apart from him in a boat and sends them forth to row against a strong headwind into the darkness of the night. And it's there, somewhere between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m., that Jesus meets the apostles, walking with his hair whipping wildly in the wind, his clothes trailing behind him as he faces the gale and treads boldly upon the surface of the deep. Peter, seeing the freedom in the heart of Christ and the absolute authority of this display of power upon the waves, is inspired. He dares something great. He steps out of the safety and security of the boat and walks upon the waters to Christ. And then, seeing the wind and the waves against him, he begins to sink. He cries out, "Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus catches him and then admonishes him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" Now, at first take, this question seems disconcerting. Anyone reading the text could easily surmise why Peter would have doubted. He was, after all, walking on water in a storm. To see the wind and the waves around you is only common sense, and to recognize that they are threatening to you is something that most common-sensed people would say Peter should have done before he got out of the boat. A closer look, however, at the words Christ says in Greek helps us to understand his meaning. The Greek word for doubt that Jesus uses here is actually distazo, commonly translated as doubt, waver, or to hesitate. But looking at the etymology of the word, we see that it also means standing in two places, or not being fully committed. The meaning of this practically seems clear. To follow Christ and to lead others in his name, we need to count 100% on him. We need to trust in him without wavering. Of course, this is a tremendous challenge, given the wind and the waves of our own lives. We think of the financial conditions that we have, or the health or medical situations our family finds itself in. There are a million reasons for us to not trust Jesus and to rely on ourselves instead. Jesus knows this, and yet still, he beckons Peter to walk upon the waters. The risks and the fears that Peter has to face in his leadership have a purpose in the plan of Christ. They serve to drive Peter to the necessity of absolute dependence and trust in Jesus' merciful love for him. Standing upon the surface of water hundreds of feet deep in a storm is no place to have doubt. There's only one way forward, and that's trusting in Christ. Peter found this out the hard way. Instead of being firm-sighted with his heart set on the one sole goal of heaven and Jesus, he tried to rely upon his own strength to do something that was impossible for him to do and beyond his strength. When Christ calls us to dare the impossible, we have to rely upon his power to accomplish what we could never do on our own. This lesson becomes a lesson that many saints have embodied since. St. Francis Xavier Cabrini, for example, coming to Denver, Colorado, was given a piece of land that had no water access for her to take care of the orphan street children of her day. And as she brought them to the land and they discovered they needed more water than the meager lake that was there, she trusted in God and insisted that her sisters begin to dig. And so as they began to dig on a mountainside with no running water, they discovered a spring that runs with clear water to this day. They discovered on the other end of their fear the miraculous power of a God who provides for those who trust in him. Certainly this is not easy to do. Certainly this is uncomfortable. Certainly our fears will remain with us. Faith does not dispel fears. Faith gives us a pathway through them. And in Peter's failure, we also see the key to our success. To tread boldly, we need to have a faith greater than fear.